And we're live.
All right.
Welcome to our 5th series of Hour of Code guest speakers, and sponsored by the Agency of Education and VitaLearn and Vermont GEG. We're going to be talking about in-school, out-of-school, after-school activities and how they might integrate or support code in school as well as out after school. And this led by Peter Drescher. And let's start by doing introductions, and then Peter will take it away. Peter, let's go left to right.
Okay. So I'm Peter Drescher, from Director of Education Technology here at the Agency of Education. Glad to be here this morning talking about coding and computer science.
And we see Karen here. I'm not sure if you can turn your video on or if you just want to go this way, Karen.
I can turn both on. We'll see how it goes. So I'm Karen. This is Scott.
Hi.
We're down here in the Rutland area, so we're actually calling from Mill River. But we coach robotics in the Rutland area.
It's great. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Joe.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Joe Bertoloni. I'm the librarian in Clarendon Elementary School, and I work for Young Hacks Academy in Middlebury.
Good morning,
and Joe. I'm Adrienne Fortune. I'm the literacy coach at Main Street Middle School in Montpelier, and I am also an instructor at Young Hacks in the summer.
Great. Good morning, Adrienne. And I'm Lucy DeLabriere, and today my role is going to be as the co-founder and representative of Tech Savvy Girls. In here, take it away, Peter.
That's great. So I just wanted to start off a little bit and chat a little bit about the state efforts around computer science. Computer science has kind of been something that has, I don't know, let's say, we'll say languished a little bit as far as the standards and coming up with ways for this to be more integral to the schools. And my role at the Agency of Education, and I'm working with some other people here, we're trying to change that and revamp that. And of course, events like this and weeks like this, the Hour of Code Week and those kinds of things and awareness around that certainly help that. This year I was invited, I was fortunate to be invited to a code.org event that took place in early November. 35 states were called upon to gather and talk about computer science and how to revamp that in their states. So it was kind of exciting couple days. Code.org is very geared towards helping states do that. So I'm looking forward to having perhaps some folks from Code.org come and help us kind of think about how to revamp the standards that we have. They also have put out an extensive set of standards that states can use and work from. So we're looking at that kind of work there. We're also, right now this year, in fact, in a couple of weeks, we're convening a first group of it. We're looking at upgrading the endorsement area for teachers in computer science. And one of the things we're trying to do is make computer science in an endorsement area, make it something that somebody doesn't have to go get a computer science degree for, because we often find that when people go get a degree in computer science, they don't come to the teaching field, they go get a job in computer science somewhere and make more money. So we're trying to find ways to think about having some kind of strand of courses that goes with any kind of educator endorsement, and have it focus on coding and maybe building computers and some of the things that all go into that, and then allow that to be the endorsement area for school. So anyways, that work is just beginning, so we'll see where that moves in the next 6 months or so. But excited to be here. And I noticed that Tom Bacon has joined us too. So Tom, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well, will you?
Hi everybody. I'm Tom Bacon. I started a program, Young Hacks Academy. We just finished our 5th year as a summer camp program. And the quick backstory is that it was a program that I started not as an engineer or even as an educator. It was really as a parent, hoping to kind of supplement what opportunities that kids were having or not having during the school year. And the camp has grown quite a bit. We now offer 4 different programs, throughout New England and beyond. So, it's great to see some familiar faces on this Hangout who are great collaborators of mine. And yeah, it's been a really great experience so far.
That's great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for being here.
Indeed.
So I think we want to start, maybe I'm looking at our agenda here. Do we want to start with Karen and Scott? Do you want to talk a little bit about your Rutland Robotics Program to kind of kick things off here?
Sure. Yeah, that would be fun.
Okay.
So we coach in the group of programs. So First Robotics has robotics programming from pre-K through grade 12 and then beyond with scholarship support for kids to attend college. So it's a really great program and it's a lot of work. Almost all the kids that we work with do it outside of their school. So we're not school sponsored in Rutland, but there are lots of schools in Vermont that do FIRST programs through their school. So as an after school program or school sponsored club, that kind of stuff. And it's a varsity sport at the high school level, which is pretty awesome.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Okay, let's move and talk a little bit about young hacks. Maybe Tom, maybe tell us a little bit about I don't know, give us a little background on young hacks as far as kind of where you took it and how, where you talk about the computer science aspect of it and how you kind of built that in.
Yeah, great. Indeed. Well, again, going back to kind of the genesis, we started the camp in Colchester, and knowing that the Colchester schools at that time didn't really have an opportunity, summer camp opportunity for computers or any kind of tech-related camp. And so when I created the camp, I thought of it as not only a way that kids could explore computer science and learn more about computational thinking, but really apply, really, I guess, create a context for it. So the idea that they would use video games as a way to learn some of the kind of foundational aspects of programming. But these games themselves would be about local and global topics. So there would be an application that the kids could then say, hey, I'm going to take this skill and I'm going to put it towards something that I'm really interested in or I'm really passionate about. Again, whether it's on a smaller, more intimate scale or on a really large kind of global scale. And so when I developed the curriculum, it was really based on not only kind of this introduction to computer science, and doing it for our initial age group was ages 9 to 12. So you can imagine 4th, 5th, 6th graders. And now it's expanded to an older age group. So it's now really ages 9 to 15. But a lot of the curriculum, when I initially created it, I kind of played with this idea around tech leadership. So the idea is that, okay, yeah, as learners, we can pick up again some of these really important computer science skills. But then how can we apply them, and how can we then develop a lot of the skills that could put us in a position to, again, take advantage of them? And not only necessarily professionally, it doesn't have to be vocational, it could be avocational as well. So a lot of what we did was, all right, so how about if we frame this around problem solving? And we have, the idea is that computer science could help solve some of these problems. And so we built this, kind of this methodology around how do you solve a problem? How do you, plan whatever that solution is or explore that problem? But then what are all the other kind of, I guess, important skills that even maybe softer skills that are attached to it? A lot of times we talk about, what are the important STEM skills or the kind of 21st century skills? And so again, as a parent, I felt like, well, what if we can teach the kids about communication and public speaking and best practices for collaboration? So then suddenly they're like, oh, okay, so I can then have, all these supporting skills so that as I can be a coder and I can do all this work, but I realize in the real world, it's more team-based. And so you need all these other skills that will, again, support your engineering or, your mathematical talents or, whatever you have. So that was really kind of the basis and really the foundation of it. And then as we've expanded over the last, 5 years, we've used the same premise, but we've expanded it for kids who are maybe a little bit older, or kids who have a little bit of programming experience that are looking to kind of take a deeper dive. I've always felt that, you know, Young Hacks is just, I mean, it's 35 hours. It's a 5-day day camp. And there's only so much it's only so far kids can actually get within that 5-day period. So, but if you think of it like a launching pad, right? You think of it, and this is to me how I think a lot about what Hour of Code is that it's a certain amount of exposure that a lot of these kids are getting, that you can then, for the ones that are, you know, you kind of, whatever that spark is, if they're sparked or turned on by it or whatever, then they can go and find so many great resources that exist online, but hopefully more and more offline, you know, examples like the robotics example, or, you know, other different, you know, kind of other different applications of it.
That's great. Maybe, and maybe this is part of the conversation with Joe and Adrian as well, but maybe give an example of one of those problems that you've seen a kid kind of apply towards this.
Yeah, I can speak to a softer skill.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Want. So I taught the younger age group who were learning how to use Scratch. So for quite a few of them, it was their first time having any exposure to coding. And I really loved seeing them working through their frustrations. So problem solving, really, you know, getting to know growth mindset skills. It was really impressive to see them at the beginning of the week, you know, feeling frustrated, but then moving through that. And then by the end of the week, feeling really confident about, you know, whatever game they had created. So it's really good to see that progression, even though it's a short period of time. It's really structured really well so that the students will go through, you know, the whole cycle and come out with a nice piece of work that they can feel proud of.
That's great. It's a 1 week deal, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Joe, do you have an example around that kind of?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit to the older kids. So we've been doing with some of the older kids with the Young Hacks Level 2. We've been doing various different coding programs over the last couple of years, and I can go back to Game Maker, which we did 2 years ago. And Game Maker can be a pretty impressive piece of software, and you can create stuff out of that that's really amazing, but it can also be kind of hard to wrap your head around. And what I found on the first day or so of teaching kids how to use that, they really struggled with it. But what I found the next day was they had gone home, and a lot of them were doing what they do best and going on YouTube and looking for resources and pulling in resources from all sorts of areas that enabled not only them to succeed, but also to help them help their friends solve their problems. So one of the big things that I've liked about it, especially when working with the more advanced students, is watching them not only reach out to help themselves and to develop those self-efficacy skills that are so important to our students, but then to also reach out and use those skills to help each other in a non-judgmental kind of way. Hey, I saw that this wasn't going right. Maybe we can help each other out with this kind of way to reach across and help out.
That's great. That's great. Maybe if each of you who are running the programs, and Tom too, I don't know, tell us an example of a something one of the kids created that kind of got at, you know, Tom was mentioning, you know, having the kids apply a skill toward a passion that they might have or something like that. I don't know, just if anyone can think of something that has come up in the past, it'd be great to hear of an example of something of kids created.
Well, I had a student, was it last year or the year before? And we're working on one of the sets for the level 1 of Young Hacks was working on something, an anti-bullying message, and there was a student who definitely had been bullied in the past and bullied pretty significantly, and you kind of tell when speaking with them that was something that they had dealt with, and when they heard about that topic, their eyes kind of lit up to say, well, how can I help other people who've been in my situation? And they spent a lot of time, and they kept going back to this one Scratch program that they kept making to try and perfect this thing where kids can find ways. So, if this is happening, what can I do next? Well, here's a button, push this, and give them advice, or say, you know, go find a trusted adult, or do any of these things that would help them, you know, find a safe space and feel better about themselves or get the help they needed.
That's great. That's great. Anyone else on something like that?
Go for it, Adrian. or Karen, whoever was talking, sorry.
Yeah, no, it was us. So in the first programs, so the kids are coding when they're solving problems with their robot. So every year there's a game field, the robot has to complete missions on the game field autonomously. So there's always a lot of learning going on when they're solving problems in that way, because the missions are hard. So it's not obvious how you're going to get your robot to do these things. But they also have to solve a real world problem related to the theme. So our team currently, so Scott and I work with the level that works with Lego robotics, and so we have 9 to 14-year-olds, and their theme this year is called hydrodynamics, and it's about working with the human water cycle. So this year the kids decided to tackle the problem of water conservation and created a set of internet connected water meters that you can put throughout your house, and they work sort of like a Fitbit except for water use. So they give you interactive charts and graphs that show how much water you've used. So that's a real, they're working as a team to create the solution, to do the programming behind it, and also to sort of sell the solution. And all those, all that interaction is all team-based. So these kids are really working hard to do all the kinds of things that we want them to be able to do, like working in a team and communicating with other people and creating compelling stuff. It's an amazing program.
That's great. That's great. That's
something else that I was going to say about, creating a game or creating, whatever their public message that they're creating through Young Hacks is the storytelling aspect. I know Tom really focused on making sure that kids were thinking about that. We did a global initiative this summer around rhinos in Africa, and so the students had to really tell that story of why the rhinos were endangered and then how they proposed to save them through their game. And so I really appreciated the storytelling aspect of that too, because they really had to stop and think it through and figure it out. So being a literacy person, I really appreciated that part of the, of coding as well.
That's great. Tom, did you want to add something too?
The only comment I was going to make was from this summer, one of the topics was get out the vote, like how we can get larger voter participation. And I was with a few of the students that were presenting the project to a group of parents, probably like a group of 8 parents or 6 to 8 parents, something like that. And a couple of the parents were like, wow, that's a good idea. Wow. And they just had a really interesting reaction to it, that it brought a completely different perspective. And, the initial premise always was like, how can we not only entertain people, through a game or through some kind of interactive story, but how can we inform them, right? And that's where it's very gratifying for me to see, but especially for those kids who are presenting, because they knew that they were even turning on these adults that didn't even consider kind of almost taking that angle, angle to that problem.
That's great. So our topic today is around, is after, out of, and in school, how those things kind of come together. So maybe somebody can talk about, when you're partnering with schools, how do you kind of, what's the dialogue you have with the schools, and in incorporating it in? Obviously, Young Hacks takes place during the summer, but what do you see comes in from the students in their school and sort of like out of school experiences that they bring to the Young Hacks experience? I don't know if somebody can speak to, just thinking about what the students kind of, I guess, and it gets to the point we're just talking about students bringing a passion or something that they're into to that particular work. But when you make pitches to schools and think about it, like, how do you kind of incorporate, the computer science and the activities they have already on the ground into that?
I'd like to take a stab at that, Tom. Peter. Tech Savvy Girls has been happening for 17 years, and it was meant to not only increase awareness and skills in computer science to our young women, but also what I found was that the girls got a certain degree of confidence, and they started to become more active in their school programs. And once they started becoming more active in their school programs, some of the teachers got the confidence to try things in school. And I had one teacher tell me just last week, we're using what Tech Savvy Girls has done in the summer to structure our program during the school year, because as teachers, we're kind of new at it, and we're seeing these girls have successes. And so we want to know more about what you're doing in the summer so that we can structure our program that way, because of the success, but also because the girls are talking about it, and then they're bringing other girls to the program during the school day. So it's a mixed co-ed environment during the school day, but the confidence that the girls have gained is giving teacher confidence in their programs.
Right, right. Anyone else thinking about that? Like when the program in the summer, how you hear or it impacts student success during the school year. Anyone else maybe be able to speak to that?
Peter,
Karen, go, please.
Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. So Lego Robotics Program, as well as the high school robotics program, they're both types of teams. So you can do, you're involved with doing science and research and mathematics and writing business plans, and there's really a full curriculum around the program. So it's a little bit more than just a week or a month or a season. A lot of the teams, especially at the high school level, are full year-round teams. That are always working on something. Our high school team, for example, they've been meeting at least twice to 4 times a week throughout the summer, throughout the fall. So it doesn't start till January. They're building a new design for their robot this year, a new way to drive the robot, play robots. They're competing in other off-season competitions, but really just getting together and developing the craft.
Yep.
And it's a lot of soft skills too. So it can be a full year, very inclusive area. And if you look at the different parts, it's really very comprehensive.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. And I'm sure people see those skills being put in place at the school during the school year too, as they, knowing that they were in your program. So yeah, that's great. Anyone else? Joe, you wanted to chime in there?
Yeah, I can speak to a couple things. I have some of my students have gone and done Young Hacks, the level 1 and the level 2 back when they were split up like that. And one of the things that I thought was really great when they came back, they were way more interested in the idea of project-based learning. I thought that the Young Hacks the Young Hacks curriculum is really based around a project-based curriculum, which is so much of what we're now pushing in our schools with proficiencies and various other things. Our students are able to say, well, let me show you how I can do this. Let me translate to you in a different way that I have knowledge. And they're more interested in now creating interactive things where they can show evidence of their knowledge and evidence of their proficiency, and that they can reach various learning targets. I've had a lot more students turn towards making coded stories through Scratch or various other programming languages where they could show what they know, and which has been great especially for our 3rd and 4th and 5th graders who are always looking for some new way to get out of a test and instead show that they can do it in a different way.
Right, a hands-on experience or something.
Exactly.
Can I speak to that too?
And that can move forward. And sorry, Adrian.
Oh no, I just wanted to add on to that too. It really speaks to personalized learning, which is, our big push right now in Vermont, to let the kids really choose how they do want to show us that they understood what we taught them. And so I've seen some kids here who have gone to Young Hacks or maybe another program who, instead of doing a presentation, and using slides. They are, coding something to show what they've learned. And I think giving them more tools outside of school to bring into school is really great. And I've seen kids showing each other too, even within the school system. Here's another way you could do that. Here's another way you could show your learning. So it kind of builds on what you were saying, Joe.
That's great. Yeah. And it's interesting. There might be a good snippet there, Lucy, from what you were talking about earlier today. I don't know. Maybe if you could. I mean, some people mentioned it here a little bit about the transferable skills too, that end up coming, being part of any work that the students are doing in this way. I mean, that in itself seems like a selling point in any of these activities for schools to kind of take on. And do them, but I don't know. Maybe we vamp off, thinking about a little more in personalized learning, like what in the dialogue that you're having with students around the passions that they bring to these, to these activities they're doing with you. Are the students able to articulate that as a personalized learning plan, or you've seen them kind of incorporate that into their personalized learning plan? I mean, Adrian's answered this a little bit, but maybe for the others. Do you hear the kids talking about that and thinking about that in that way?
I've had a lot of students bring it to the table as a way of for evidence of their learning for their personalized learning plans, the way we're working on it. I teach pre-K through 6. So I don't have some of the more advanced learners or some of the more complicated personalized learning plans that might exist at the middle or high school level. But I could see it very easily fitting in there. But my kids, they like saying, they like being able to show that they've met proficiencies through various creative ways, and the being able to put together a computer program that tells a digital story, for them, there's nothing cooler than that, and it gets them excited and really helps them move forward on it because it gives them a set goal that they can work towards.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, similar to what Joe said, students might put on, we have websites that the students build for their PLP plans, and it's a 5th through 8th graders. So they might put on there some skill that they have, or they might actually put their Young Hacks project as a piece of evidence of their learning onto their website. And then teachers at our school and in our district are designing their unit plans so that the final assessment is really something that can be customized by the students based on their own learning styles. And that's something that we really work on scaffolding every grade to make sure that they're understanding, what is my learning style. And so these students who have learned all these skills already over the summer can propose to, show that they can demonstrate their learning in science through making and coding a game or making and coding an animation of some kind. So it really can be integrated into the school day if the teachers are putting it in there as an option.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, and I just to kind of build a little bit on that too. One of the things that I've been really enjoying this week for CS Ed Week is that so many of my students have been working on showing off some of their habits of work and the idea of perseverance and all that by taking on a coding challenge. And by sitting down and starting to build, and they've all kind of seen this as like the perfect time to start working on that and setting it up, and then adding that to their PLP as evidence that they can persevere, or they have grit, or whatever other keywords they're trying to use.
It's good.
I'm wondering. Sorry, go ahead, Adrian.
Sorry, it's Karen. So what's interesting to me is Scott and I run a summer camp in the summer through Mill Rivers District for robotics. And when I see those kids again in the fall as 7th and 8th graders often, they have a hard time connecting the learning that happened in the summer at camp with what they want to feature on their PLP. So when they come and we're talking about their PLP, I'm like, well, don't forget that you did all this great learning in the summer, and that was all about perseverance and solving problems, and look at all this great evidence you have for that. But they often need the little reminder about it, which is just, it's interesting to me that for some reason they're in school and they're doing a PLP, so they're only looking for evidence that from school somehow.
Maybe it's that thing about coming back to the school building and doing school, quote unquote.
I think
as
it's also a
opposed to
message
doing
that the
something
teachers need to
passionate.
send too.
Yeah.
The teachers need to send that message. I know a lot of our teachers mentioned that over the summer you're still collecting evidence to bring back, and they can even add to it over the summer. So I think that's something that, is maybe you might want to run by the schools as well, that they can be giving that message to support it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Lucy, you had a comment, I think. You're muted. There you go.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful to create a gallery of some of these projects and some places and remind students or even present them to other professional development organization. Like, we're talking about it here, but I think it'd be really powerful if we created a gallery of some of these projects under a learning through coding.
Yeah. Interesting. Tom, when you approach schools and talk about Young Hacks Academy, how do you tie in kind of the personalized learning, transferable skills piece? I mean, obviously you're trying to do that to talk about that with it.
Sure.
How do you bring that up? How's that figure in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it again was really around trying to define what these 21st century skills are, and a lot of, I mean, I've been trying to do it really in tandem with a lot of the state standards, and trying to make sure that there's some consistency there. Frankly, I haven't really connected the dot directly to PLPs, but it certainly makes great sense. Typically, the conversation that I would have with the school is just that, hey, here's an opportunity for a kid to, again, explore computer science with a group with other kids. I mean, that's the part that I think the students enjoy the most, is that, yeah, I mean, they all like to play on a computer, and they like to tinker and try different things, but when they're when there's a person to their left that's on a computer, and then there's a person on the right that's on a computer, then there's community. And so a lot of the projects that we do are team-based. So that alone, I think the schools have been, really appreciated that that's kind of been our focus, that, yeah, we're trying to apply, and develop some of these skills that are, so there's continuity to what they're trying to do during the school year. But, a lot of it too, and again, this is coming from a parent's perspective, is that where there's so many, adventure camps, sports camps, so many different kinds of experiential opportunities for kids during the summer, we also know that kids have to exercise their brains. And so, which is why enrichment camps and STEM camps, the demand is just growing and growing and growing. And I think that's the other thing that schools really appreciate, that, kids, are having some of these experiences. But, whether it's, Lucy's idea or some other ideas that we can form to, again, almost formalize that connection to the work that they're doing during the summer. Because usually the way I talk about it is like what happens after the school year. But if you frame it like, oh, what happens before the school year, that's something a little different. So, again, connecting those dots would be really great.
Do you hear of schools talking to you about how, and this is for everybody to kind of address here, do schools ever talk to you about how the experience they had in the summer, or the experience they had with robotics or whatever it might be, how that has moved over into an interest in computer science at the school? Has it driven any kind of programming at the school? Other examples of that, where you've seen it kind of drive something to happen at the school because of what the students are bringing back from this? Anybody?
I've had a few students who've done Young Hacks come back to school, and their big thing was they're all after-school students as well, and so they've been pushing the after-school program to include more robotics and programming, and they are. They decided to start investing their money in there, and so now they have a much larger robot collection than I do, and I get jealous and try to go steal it sometimes. They locked it really good, so I can't get in there.
Anybody else? Things that you've heard that kind of drive computer science or programming or something at the school level?
Well, you know, one thing I definitely want to add, and it's great seeing Joe and Adrian here, but especially someone like Joe who's worked at Young Hacks for several summers now. The growth and the development of the instructors who are local teachers, who are, you know, work in the state, the growth and development that they've had year over year has been really exciting for me to see, because like Joe will come back the next summer with, you know, this whole new bag of tricks, you know, and just have so much more proficiency in all these other areas. And that's very true of, you know, of a lot of our teachers that have these experiences during the summer that they can then bring to their classes, you know, during the rest of the school year. So again, it really kind of completes that cycle, that annual cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're kind of winding up a little bit here, but I wanted to add something that's apropos for this right now, this topic. Some of you may know Matt Dunne. He ran for governor a couple of times ago, and but he's been working on a project in Springfield where he's opening up a school, and they are going to be one of the only schools. I think Rutland Central has this qualification too, but they're going to be one of the only schools that has computer science as a graduation requirement. So it's kind of interesting, and I'm sure there'll be more. I think they're opening the doors now, but they're kind of getting ready to go full on after July 1st. But kind of an interesting project, and you know, as that comes more into fruition, we'll talk more about it. But kind of an interesting piece there, and something I think we'd like to drive from the agency perspective too is having more schools think about that as one of the graduation requirements they might do. So.
So Peter, I think some of our teachers have to go. So.
Okay.
Wrap up.
Yeah. So if people need to duck off, they can. Just a big thank you to everyone here. Adrian Fortune from Main Street Middle School, Joe Bertoloni from where are you? Clarendon, right, Joe? Yes.
Yep. And Plymouth Elementary Schools.
Yeah. And Clarendon and Karen and Scott, thank you so much for coming in from Mill River there. Tom, I think you're up in Chittenden County, right? Yep. Correct. Yep. Sure. Thanks for joining us today, and Lucy, as always, thanks so much for putting this together and making it happen. It's been great, and I think we can use some of this material here to kind of foster, you know, some thinking around this kind of work in computer science. So
great job, Peter and Lucy. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Bye.